What up everybody, ZachAttacksFat here, and today I am attacking story time. I want to tell a couple of different stories about times where my weight really held me back and my weight made me feel like crap, basically. So there's two specific stories where I can remember I felt the absolute lowest and worst about my weight, and so I figured I'd share them with you guys. So let's get started. We'll just go in chronological order. So first off, let me get you a little bit of backstory. I live here in Southern California. So in Southern California, we have a ton of theme parks. You know, Disneyland, Six Flags, Knott's Berry Farm, Legoland. Even SeaWorld has roller coasters. This story in particular has to do with Six Flags. So ever since I was a little kid, I would hear about my friends going to Six Flags, and I've always wanted to go super bad. Like, it was like, hey mom, dad, let's go to Six Flags, let's go to Six Flags. And we just never really got around to going to Six Flags. We went to Disneyland quite a bit, actually, so it wasn't like we just never went to any sort of amusement park, but we never went to Six Flags. And partially because I have a little sister, and so she wasn't really big on roller coasters. And if anybody knows Six Flags, that's basically just all roller coasters. We never actually ended up going when I was younger, and it wasn't until I was in high school where I had the chance to go. So to give a little bit more backstory, my brother was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 13 years old. I was 10 years old. And so he's always had a lot of health complications from that. I plan on doing a more in-depth video about that whole part of my life later. He had trouble walking for long distances and standing for long times. So for now, that's all you need to know. In high school, we actually, you know, me, my brother, we were pretty close. And so we were like, you know what? Let's go to Six Flags. I was gonna bring my best friend at the time, Chris, and he was bringing his girlfriend at the time. And so, you know, I was stoked because I had wanted to go to Six Flags basically my whole life at that time. So it was just like, finally, fucking finally, I'm gonna go get my roller coaster on. We load up the car, we get to Six Flags. We went and we got my brother a wheelchair. I don't remember if we rented him one or if we brought his, but we had his wheelchair. You know, me being big, I've always been big, I've always been strong, and so a lot of the time I got put on wheelchair duty because I was the strong one, and it wasn't really that hard for me to push my brother as it was for other people to push him around. And I'm close with my brother, I love my brother to death, so it was just something that I did for him, did for everybody else, and it was cool. And we get in the first line. I don't remember what ride it was. I want to say it was Green Lantern. No. I remember now. It was the Riddler, because the Riddler is like a roller coaster where you stand up the whole time, and then like you're like on a seat, and then they bring down the things on top of you. So we waited in line, we got on the roller coaster, I got in there, they brought the pad down, and it wouldn't lock. And I know if you're out there and you're obese or you're overweight and you know, are significantly overweight, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this feeling, and it sucked a lot. I don't think it was the first time I had ever had to get kicked off of a roller coaster for not fitting, but it was my first time at Six Flags, and it was the very first ride, so it was very discouraging, but it was like, okay, you know, I'll just hop off, everybody else just go on the ride, have fun, I'll be waiting at the gate, and, you know, we'll go from there. So they went on the ride, came off the ride, met back up with me, then we went to go try the Batman ride. Get in line, wait through the line, get into the car, I don't fit again. So at this point, I was starting to get very discouraged because it was like, oh crap, like if I didn't fit on this ride and I didn't fit on the first ride, am I going to be able to fit on any of these rides? For those of you who don't know, Six Flags has a lot of hills, like it's basically a park that's built on a hill. That's why they call it Magic Mountain. You know, it's like on a mountain. Well, it's not on a mountain, but it's uphill for a lot of it. After that ride, it was kind of like, ah, crap, like another ride. And it stung. And then I tried another roller coaster and I just didn't fit. And then at this point, I pretty much realized that I just wasn't gonna fit on any of the rides. And then it was just like, I was starting to get tired because I was like pushing my brother around in his wheelchair and like all uphill all day long. And I mean, I'm glad I was there still. And one thing that was like, I kept telling myself was, you know, at least you're here for your brother. At least you're here to push him up all these hills. At least you're here to kind of help him through this because he's been through so much that he deserves to have a good time. And and so I was like, he deserves to have a good time still because, you know, it's just, he's been cooped up in a hospital for years. So, you know, I was a good sport about it. I'm like, I'm not gonna ruin everybody's day because I feel like crap about not being able to fit. Like, I'm not gonna complain. I'm not gonna tell everybody like, let's just go home. You know, I'm just not gonna do that. Luckily, my friend Chris that was there with me was a great friend to me because he sat out every single ride with me. He was like, you know what? Like, if you're not gonna fit, you know, I came here with you and for you, and you're the only reason I'm here right now, so I'm not gonna ride all these rides without you. So, shout out to Chris. You the real one. And so yeah, that was one of the days where it was just like, man, I felt so low about myself because it was like, you've let yourself get to the point where you are so big that you can't do the things you want to do. Like, it was just so weird because throughout my life, I've never really let my weight hold me back. You know, I always played football. I always went and rode my longboard around. Like, I was generally pretty active for somebody at my size. And so to have something that held me back and it wasn't a choice of mine, there was no choice for me to be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna try really hard and I'll fit on that roller coaster. You know, like, that was like with everything else. Like, I'm just gonna try really hard and I could play football. I'm just gonna try really hard and I could ride longboards. And it was honestly one of the worst days of my life. Like, it sounds weird because it doesn't seem like it should be that big of a deal. You know, I mean, obviously it sucks, but it's just kind of like, yeah, you missed out, that sucks. But it was different when it was something that it was like, no, you let yourself get to this point. You now can't do something that you've wanted to do your whole life because of your inaction around your health. And it was a hard pill to swallow for me. I was really depressed at that day, the day after, and so that was one goal of mine always, was just, I kept that day in mind. Like, that was one of the reminders. I know I've talked about the wallpaper I had before of the no excuses, get what you want, and one of the pictures I used for that was actually a roller coaster from Six Flags, because I was like, remember that feeling. Remember feeling like couldn't do something and it was solely on you. It wasn't the fact that you couldn't try hard enough and just do it anyway. It was the fact that you didn't try hard enough with your health. And so it was something I used for motivation for a very, very, very long time. Now, luckily, I can fit on roller coasters, but I still haven't been back to Six Flags. I've been back to like Knott's Berry Farm and stuff, and I fit on everything fine. And I realized that now that I'm older, I get motion sickness. So, you know, when I was younger, I could ride roller coasters, no problem. But now I get motion sickness. So I haven't really felt the desire to go back that much. But I'm thinking I do want to go back soon, because after talking about this, it kind of stirred up some emotions that I feel like it'd be very cathartic to just go back and ride those rides, if that makes sense. All right, and now like just a little mini story about being embarrassed about my weight and feeling held back and just kind of ashamed of it. Was in school, in high school, all the desks in every single class was those desks that you see in movies where it has like the tabletop and it goes back and then it's connected to a chair. And I couldn't fit in those. And so every year, it was new classes, new teachers, and I would have to tell my teacher, like, hey, I can't fit in the desk, so you need to get a table with a chair for me. And it was just really embarrassing because nobody ever made fun of me for it, really, at least not to my face or to what I've heard. But it just made you realize, it made you feel different. It made you feel like, almost like you weren't good enough in a sense. I know it's weird because that's not really what it says about you, but it just made it very prevalent that I wasn't like everybody else and I was too fat to do things that everybody else was doing. And just to preface this, I did not expect this. This video is actually kind of hard for me to make right now. I didn't expect it to be this hard. Normally I can talk about this stuff, but I think it's because I'm talking about it with other people. But right now I have time to really just think about every detail, and I'm thinking about how I felt and to try and explain in greater detail about what was going through my mind. And it's kicking up some shit, to say the least. But all right, let's go now after high school. So after high school, I still put on weight. I actually gained more weight once I was out of high school. The first year I was out of high school, I had a best friend. His name was Matt. And me and him hung out every single day. And he moved to Ohio with his older brother. So I wanted to go see him. It was about a year that I'd seen him. So I was like, I want to go see my friend Matt. It's been a really long time. He was my best friend. I spent every day with him. I want to go visit him and, hang out with him again. So, I told my mom that. My mom was super supportive. She was like, yes, of course. She bought me a plane ticket. She, I don't think she drove me to the airport. I'm pretty sure my dad drove me to the airport. Everybody was just super supportive. I was super excited. I packed my bags. I got everything ready. And I went to the airport, went through security, got over there, gave him my boarding pass, got on the plane, and it was a Southwest flight. So if you guys aren't familiar with how Southwest works, it's kind of like a big airplane bus to where you just buy a ticket for the plane. You don't buy a ticket for the seat. So you just buy the ticket, you find a seat, you sit wherever, and that's the end of that. So I actually boarded the plane before a lot of people, but the flight was fully booked. And when I sat down, I could fit into the seat, kind of. I could get my hips into the seat, but my stomach and stuff would spill over, the armrests. And I asked the flight attendant for a seatbelt extension, all my obese people, you guys know that feeling. So it's already embarrassing enough that I have to ask them for a seatbelt extension. And so I asked the flight attendant for a seatbelt extension, and she was like, okay, yeah, I'll go grab you one. And she left, and when she came back, she didn't have a seatbelt extension. She actually informed me that because of my size and because I didn't really fit into the seat, that I would have to purchase another seat, and that I couldn't just do it, then and there, that I actually had to get off the plane and schedule another flight. It was just really hard. That was like I said, it was like another time where it was like, man, you've let yourself now get so big that you can't even fly on a plane to go see your friend. And not only that, but now you have to get off this plane when everybody sitting around you knows what's going on. They all heard that you're too fat to be on the plane, and it sucked, to say the least. And it was, again, probably one of the worst days of my life, in terms of how I felt about myself. And, you know, I had to get off the plane. I had to call my dad. I had to tell him, hey, you know, turn around, come back to the airport. They kicked me off the plane. I had to call my mom and let her know that even though she bought me a ticket to go see my friend, that I couldn't use it, and I would actually have to have 2 tickets if I wanted to go. And, you know, luckily, thank God for my mom, because my mom has always been very supportive and understanding of me. And so she, you know, obviously she said she was so sorry that that happened to me. And she basically just told me not to worry about it. She was going to buy me another ticket, and I was going to get on a plane the next day, and I was going to go still. So luckily I still did get to go, and I went. The very next day I got a flight again, and I went, and I had a great time in Ohio. But having that happen was definitely something that stuck with me, and it still does. But yeah, so I guess to bring this video full circle is, even if you think that, you know, everything's fine and that your weight's not holding you back and stuff like that, there may come a time where no matter how hard you want it or how hard you try, that it's gonna hold you back. And I honestly don't want anybody to ever have to experience that type of thing or go through that type of thing, because just the feeling you have about yourself in those situations is not the greatest. So if you guys have any sort of similar stories, I'd love to hear about it. Comment down below. I'm always in my comments. So if you guys could relate at all, let me know. If you guys had any sort of similar situations happen that may have not have had to do with airplanes or roller coasters, let me know. Like always, if you like this video, make sure you like it. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it a lot. So yeah, that was my story time. Definitely got a little bit more emotional than I thought it would be, which is very odd because normally I'm pretty good at talking about this stuff. But yeah, it was good. It was nice to talk about it. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye.
And I know I'm indestructible.